So nice to be here. This is wonderful. I want to say thank you to Jason, who is helping on tech, and Sharon on chat. Thank you so much. And thanks to Lynn and Sally and Gomez for the wonderful hospitality greeting, as always. Thank you, thank you. Thank you to Cantor Rosen for gorgeous, gorgeous davening and playing. Thank you. So tonight I want to start with the words of our late, great lesbian spiritual poet, Mary Oliver, who wrote, "If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give in to it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise and not very often kind, and much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back, that sometimes something happened better than all the riches or power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you notice it in the instant when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb." So now I want to shift into thinking of the Pesach story and our own story, both. The Passover story is our collective story of freedom. But like many stories, it doesn't have a perfect beginning or ending. When is the exact moment of liberation? Is it when the plague of the firstborn skips over the Hebrews' houses? Is it when they decide to leave at midnight in that chipazon, in that rushed sort of, we have to get out of here now? Is it when they cross the sea? How about when they get to the other side? How about Mount Sinai? Is it after the golden calf? It's hard to pick out one moment and raise it above all others, and I could see an argument for many on the list. However, if I was going to pick one, at least tonight, don't hold me to it next year, tonight I would pick the moment at the Red Sea, when they choose to cross. They walk through the sea on dry land. They taste freedom for the first time. And then two distinct things happen in the text. The first, Moses sings a song, which becomes known as the Song of the Sea, Shirat Hayam. And second, Miriam leads the Israelites through the sea with song and dancing. You can practically feel the words in the Torah of the elation and the relief and the joy jumping off the page. This is the moment of freedom. Avadim hayinu ve'ata b'nei chorin. We were slaves and now we are free. This is how Moses' song begins. And some might know it in sort of a sing-songy voice, actually. It begins like this. Az yashir Moshe uvenei Yisrael. And I'm not going to keep going, but that's how it goes. So it goes like that. So it begins like this. Az yashir Moshe. And the commentators take note of this very interesting beginning word, az. Usually in the Torah, when somebody does an action, like speak or talk, the regular formulation used is Vayedaber Moshe, Moses spoke, or Vayomer Adonai, God spoke. So for those that know Hebrew and can follow along with me here, if this song were to follow the normal Torah grammatical rules, the way it should potentially read is Vayashir Moshe, Moses sang. Am I getting too nitty-gritty? Everyone's good? Okay. I'm moving out of the grammar, don't worry. Okay. But that's not what it says. It says, Az Yashir Moshe. And that little word az at the beginning makes a big difference. Az is basically translated as so. So. And it means that the whole passage becomes translated as, so Moses began to sing. As in, it was not a premeditated act. This wasn't a poem he had written or composed months in advance. It wasn't something he pictured himself doing. It wasn't even something God commanded him to do. This was a spontaneous act of joy. The commentators make a point of saying that once he and Bnei Israel were walking through the sea, Moses was so moved by the miracle, by that taste of freedom, that he burst into spontaneous, joyous song. In contrast, the text teaches us, Miriam came prepared. She led the women through the sea, singing and dancing the whole way with her timbrel. The Midrash asks, where did she get the timbrel? The answer is she brought it with her in the rush of leaving Egypt in order to use it for this exact moment. She brought it purely to use in moments of joy. Miriam, who in this exact moment in the song is called Miriam the prophetess, foresaw that there would come a time where there would be a need for joy. Miriam saw the need for singing regardless of what might come to pass. So now let's shift into thinking about our own collective story, not our ancient story of biblical freedom, but where we are living right now in North America. In this sort of funny post-lockdown, post-knowledge of coronavirus world. A lot has shifted and gone back to normal, as we say, but there are also major parts of us that are very much changed and very much scarred from that time. I think a lot of how it affected people of all ages very differently and very starkly. And I actually particularly think a lot about kids who had to go into a Zoom learning environment. It's sort of hard for me actually to pick out one age group, because then I start thinking of all the different age groups that were so deeply affected. I think of parents who had extremely young children and how hard that must have been. I think of college students who were supposed to go away to college and how or who were in college and their whole lives were disrupted. I think of people, younger people who had whole plans and dreams shifted because of the pandemic that have still not gone back to normal. Really, people of any age, I think, have gone through an emotional, deeply sort of collectively traumatizing experience, and we're still coming out of it. And what I think is true for everyone, every single age group, is that I think that there's a bit of an epidemic of loss of joy, or the type of joy, at least, that we get to share with others. A loss of connection to other human beings, a loss of shared experience. And it's not even our fault. Our worlds have gotten so small that we can now work from home on our computers, order groceries and clothes at home from our apps on our phones, communicate with people from our phones and our computers, unwind at the end of the day by watching TV on our phones and our computers. Our whole lives can fit inside one little tiny box. And yes, actually, of course, some of that is very cool and amazing and connecting. I don't want to take away any of that. But it also makes it really hard to find new and shared joy. There's a part in the Haggadah as we go through the practice of telling the Exodus story that says, B'chol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim. We just heard Cantor Rosa play it so beautifully. And I said this a lot during the Seder, how I think this is sort of the essence of the mitzvah of telling the Passover story. We're obligated each year in telling the story to see ourselves as though we are truly part of the story, a part of the Exodus, a part of the moment that Bnei Israel was tasting freedom for the first time. We must imagine ourselves there in order to participate in the mitzvah of Passover. It's part of the commandment. But there's another tradition about this exact commandment. It's from Rambam, or Maimonides. He had the tradition of reading it as, B'chol dor vador chayav adam leharot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim. In every generation, a person is obligated to, and here is where we have to do a little bit of translation work, leharot, to proclaim, to express, to display, to in some way make known that they have gone through the Exodus experience. Rambam's reasoning is that it's not enough to simply imagine yourself there. Because, and here I'm going to quote, because if you can really imagine yourself there, then your ecstasy and your joy, the joy from your heart, from becoming free, both spiritually and physically free from enslavement, would be so great that if you could really internalize that and feel it, then you would we would all have to be conspicuous and visible about that joy, and not just store it away in the recesses of our hearts or our imaginations. So all that to say that this Passover, in honor of being free, in honor of the commandment of putting ourselves in this narrative, might I suggest that the way to express our freedom is that if you suddenly and spontaneously feel joy, if you have any small thing in your life that delights you, in the spirit of freedom, be loud about it. Don't keep it tucked away. In fact, go forward towards it with full speed. In order to remember Moses, who was loud about his own joy, and in order to remember Miriam, who understood that humans need joy no matter what else is happening around us, and we need it especially now. And above all, to remember that joy is not meant to be a crumb. Shabbat shalom.